Production funding for Living Smart with Patricia Gras is underwritten in part by Halliburton.
Are you or anyone you know in an abusive relationship? Learn what you can do from one of Houston's most experienced violence prevention experts. Next on Living Smart. Hello, I'm Patricia Gras. Welcome to Living Smart. Today's guest, Perez Johnson, shares with us how to get out of an abusive situation, transform yourself into a new woman, and teach your children about healthy relationships. Have pen and paper ready. We'll be giving you a list of resources at the end of the program. Domestic violence affects women of all races, cultures, and economic backgrounds, but Hispanic women face a unique hurdle to get help, a language and cultural barrier.
Empezamos como siempre con la oración.
That's why when Perez Johnson founded La Rosa Family Services on the north side of Houston, the nonprofit agency to prevent domestic violence, the Latino women came in droves. Since 1995, the agency has helped over 60,000 clients, and each week, the number of visitors gets higher.
The rose is symbolic of a new beginning. And in our logo, we have the rose inside the heart. The heart has a purple border and then a white interior, which that is symbolic of a transformation from pain to healing to a new beginning. Entonces, yo le dije a él,
and for years, healing is what Candy struggled to achieve, until she, as a community activist, co-founded La Rosa.
In the beginning, I had convinced myself that it was just to help other women. In the process, that was the cherry on top of the cake.
Candy could understand these women because she, too, had been abused.
And when I was 8 years old, I was sexually abused and tortured by a 43-year-old male relative. At the time, there was no Houston Area Women's Center, no La Rosa Family Services, and I was scared to death, along with the fact that he threatened to kill me if I ever told. And so I kept it inside. Abuse lasted about 3.5 years. And he would torture me in a way where there was no visible signs.
Then she found the inner strength she didn't know she had, the kind, she says, transformed her life.
As I grew older, I would see him look at my sisters. And so when my sisters were getting close to the age that I was, when he started abusing me, I started thinking, I cannot have my sisters go through what I went through. By now, I was 11 and a half. I made a decision that I would stand up to the abuser. And I prepared myself mentally also. And I guess you could say I got with God and I was ready. I said, this is the last time you're going to touch me. Either you kill me tonight, because if you ever touch me or my sisters again, I'm going to kill you. Es muy importante esa relación, cómo la familia alrededor de uno la ve.
This confrontation would set the stage for one of the most popular cultural domestic violence prevention programs in the country.
I know what conviction felt like. And I always promised myself that I would do that. That once I believed in something, I was going to stick to it till death.
Candy married, had 2 children, and remained in a mentally abusive relationship until she, too, was forced to confront her own life.
In 1995, when La Rosa was formed, I started thinking how hypocritical I would be if I was living one life and preaching another. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And so I told him, I said, something has to change. I cannot sit in an office and tell women that they must demand dignity and respect when I don't have it.
After 30 years of marriage, Candy divorced, but she knew she had made the right decision. Today, every woman she counsels Here's a story of her own family's legacy. Candy, why is legacy important in your work?
It's so important because that is something that is going to live forever. That is a part of me. I keep this in my office to remind me what I am to teach my granddaughter. This is her great-great-grandmother. 100 years ago, she came as a widow with little children, didn't speak English, didn't read and write, and she managed without sacrificing her dignity. I'm sure no one wants to leave a legacy of abuse or trauma.
Muy rica y muy nutritiva. La sopa de avena.
La Rosa helps over 150 clients a week. Besides a food pantry, counseling, and group therapy sessions, La Rosa focuses on all the family's needs, enhancing the woman's self-esteem and keeping the family together, unless the abuser uses a weapon or deadly force.
Most moms are not going to leave their kids behind. So what does she do? She's going to stay because she wants to keep the kids together. Well, okay, if you have to stay anyway because you don't have the resources to leave or there are no resources available to you, okay, we got to work with that. We decided to develop a method that would help her help herself. And so the incredible outcome was that once the victim became a survivor and helped herself, most of the times the abuser also changed. Felicidades a la novia.
That was the case for Miroslava Núñez, a newly arrived immigrant.
I started going to La Rosa 6.5 years ago and felt a lot of frustration. I couldn't speak English and was terribly afraid to drive because I was so afraid of the police. At La Rosa, I learned why I was so afraid. I was terrified at the police because when I was a child, the police reminded me of the domestic violence I had experienced in my own home.
Today, Miroslava drives, owns her own cleaning business, has put a down payment on a new home, and her relationship with her husband is better than ever.
Candy is the base of everything good that I have learned. From her, I have learned you have to fight for what you want and don't stop until you get it.
Candy recently remarried and says she has found her own inner power.
First, through spiritual tools. After that, I find it by loving myself, by knowing that I'm worthy and that I deserve good things in life. Remember, that took me years to learn that.
Her goal now is to share her wisdom by developing a curriculum so her method of prevention can be duplicated around the world. Candy, so great to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. You say in the story, we've seen the story, that you have to give women their sense of empowerment, their sense of self, their sense of pride, their sense of strength. How do you do that when they're in a situation where they're getting beat up?
Very quickly and as quickly as possible, because you don't know if the next day they're going to be killed or their children injured. So we have to do this as quickly as possible, and we tap into what are her strengths. Maybe she's a great cook. Maybe she's a great house cleaner. Maybe she's a great car washer. Whatever it is, you tap into whatever little strength she can think she thinks she has, and from there we build upon that and build upon that and build upon that.
Okay, and you do that through the support group. Is that the most effective way, the support group?
It is, because women hear each other and know that they are not alone. The greatest way that an abusive person can abuse is by isolating the victim, making him or her think you're the only stupid one in the whole world that puts up with this. And when they hear other women, hey, wait a minute, she went through what I went through and is fine today, I can do that too.
What are some of the warning signs? You know, let's say you're dating someone before you marry, before you have children, that, hey, this guy could eventually become an abuser.
Two big ones. First of all, excessive jealousy, which he or she claims is love. I love you too much to share you with anyone, therefore don't have friends and family.
Red flag.
Big red flag. Secondly is it gets agitated easily when set with limitations. For example, well, we were going to go out with friends this weekend, remember? And he or she says, no, you didn't tell me, and explodes. Mm-hmm. Big warning sign. Those are the two big ones, the jealousy, possessiveness, and in getting extremely agitated at any type of limitation.
Once a woman finally decides to leave, now I have another question first. Why does a woman stay? I understand a woman stays a long time before she finally decides to leave. Why is that? Why?
Usually a woman will go and come back 11 times.
It's amazing.
Before she finally makes the final break. And it is because the abusive person has gained power and control over the victim and has made the victim feel useless and worthless. Therefore, there is a great fear of going out on your own and failing with several children.
Right, and he's been telling you you're a failure anyway, so
exactly.
You begin to believe it.
Exactly.
How do you coach them to stay out of an abusive relationship, to get out of an abusive relationship? Do you do it with a plan? I mean, you just don't leave someone that's abusive. He can really turn extremely violent if you just leave him, and you tell him, I'm leaving you, right? So you have a strategy to get out.
Yes, a victim's life is in danger 100% from the moment that he or she says, I'm leaving. Okay, so you have to have a plan before you leave. Now, if a weapon has not been pulled, and we try to come up with a plan for life, plan de vida. How are you going to get out? When are you going to get out? What do you do when you're going to get out? And what are you going to do to make sure you maintain safety for your children? So everybody's plan is individual. Even though we see 500 to 600 families a year, everybody's plan is individual because everybody's needs are different. But the everything starts with this tiny little spot within a person that we always ask them, now, do you think that you were weak or strong in order to feed your family on pennies? And they kind of think about it, and then we say, were you weak or strong when you had to put on a happy face for your children at school even though you were miserable inside? Right. And so we point out to them that it took strength to stay there. Well, instead of using this strength to stay there, why don't we use this strength to empower ourselves? Right. And once they realize that they don't have to try to obtain a skill that they think they don't have, that they're going to utilize the skill that they do have in a positive way instead of a negative way. And from there, we start rolling.
Why does a woman allow herself to be hit or to be abused? Do you think, is it family? Is it your background? What is it that allows that?
Usually there's a lot of cultural norms, and there's a lot of issues with not wanting to be alone, with feeling as a very young person that I'm a failure. If I get married and have children, I will have proven to somebody that I know how to do something. Very low self-esteem. Also, if the person came from an environment of abuse, sees abuse as normal. And that's hard for us to think about that. But that does happen quite often.
So what is the first question, for example, you need to ask yourself? Let's say you've never been hit by your mate and he hits you for the first time. What's the first question you need to ask yourself after he does that?
You say, should I or should I not remove myself quickly? And usually what a woman will do is, why did he do it? And they try to justify, well, he had one too many. He had a bad day at work. Someone caused some road rage, whatever. And we want to justify, and that's the worst thing anyone can do. You got to realize he did it because he couldn't control his anger, not because he had a bad day at work.
There's no justification for hitting.
Exactly. None. And you don't justify. You look at it and say, this person has hit me. This is a side of this person I had not seen before.
What about the women who say, I love him, and this is just one of his character traits, and I still love him? And I'm sure you hear that all the time. I still love him.
About 200 times a day.
Right. And what do you say?
And we say, okay, well, tell me, what is your definition of love? Because my definition of love is respect and caring and support and protection And that's what love is. You tell me what love is. And then they start realizing, wait a minute, I don't have none of these things. And sometimes we help them to see that they love the idea of being in love. Mm-hmm. And that's very different. That's very different from being in the reality. There are many people that are in love with the idea of being in love.
Right. And let's talk about love, because you hear also this. Can someone who hits you, someone who batters you, someone who verbally abuses you really love you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
But they're convinced that they love
you. Oh, yes. We had a call this morning from a man that was separated for several weeks. The wife decided to give it a chance, go back this weekend. The first thing he did, 2 hours after she went back, he abused her. This morning he called, this was over the weekend, and leaves on our recording how much he loves her and can't live without her.
After he's hit her.
Yeah.
Another thing that you work with a lot, and because you're working primarily with Latina women, is the machismo culture. Mm-hmm. How do you dispel that culture? How do you retrain the woman and the man? And we'll talk about that later also. How do you help the abuser?
Well, first of all, we work with everyone. Our focus is with Latina women, but we do not
work with everybody.
Yes, we do not turn anybody away, male or female, young or old. It doesn't matter what mm-hmm. ethnic group you belong. If you need help, we're there to help. That's the first thing. And the secondly, concerning the macho syndrome or the cultural norm, whatever you want to call it, is that we ask them to let's visit that whole syndrome again. What is it? What good is there in that for me, and what is there bad in that for me? And we have them. We don't tell them it's bad for you. No, we get them to see everything. This is part of the empowerment process. You don't help anyone by telling them what they're supposed to think. You help them and coach them and shepherd them to find their own answers from within and without. Right. So we ask them, what is the good and bad in this? Most of the time, they find the bad. Control, possessiveness, unhappiness. And so we help them to see it different. We don't tell them, look, it's here, it's different, and you got to look at that. No. Because, again, that is part of the empowerment process, helping people start to make even small decisions on their own.
Right. Now, your experience, you also try to help the abuser, right? In some way, if the man will come and say, I want help, I don't want to lose my wife.
If no weapon has been pulled, first of all, and if he comes on his own, not because his wife dragged him, and that's very obvious in the first 5 seconds we can tell. And when he does, and when we give him this long list of things that we feel would be good for him to do, that we recommend for him to do, and when he shows this eagerness to do this without setting conditions on his partner, because when they say, I'll be happy to do it, but she has to come home. Big red flag. Don't go there.
Right.
But when he says, yes, ma'am, and by when do I need to do this?
Okay.
And doesn't ask of anything, we know that that's a sincere effort to really want to change.
And in your experience, have you found, you said that when the women change, when they start getting their self-esteem, they start standing up for themselves, the man changes too. How does that happen?
85% of the time, in the cases we have handled, 85% of the time, they are very surprised. They tell us constantly, I can't believe he's doing that. I can't believe he's bringing me flowers. I can't believe he's washing dishes. I can't believe he's paying the house note. And they're amazed because they find this dignity and respect that we tell them that they deserve. The abuser, no longer abuser, but now a true partner trying to make things work, finds that dignity and respect in her also.
Why do you find that some of these men abuse? Why does someone abuse a woman? Why is that?
Well, 97% of all victims are female. So there are 3% that are male.
Right.
But the reasons are the same. The abusive person abused simply because they can get away with it. Not because they were born in a certain region of the world, not because they were adopted or anything like that. Nothing. Simply, only one reason exists, just because they can get away with it.
Okay, and also isn't it because a lot of times they were abused as children?
Yes.
And they saw that at home?
They saw it at home, but if they can get away with it, they're going to do it.
Right.
And usually if the victim sets limits and says, no, I have boundaries, you're not going to do this, you have to get rid of these horrible habits if you want to stay with me, we have found 85% of the time they do change.
So they don't want to lose their wives. They're willing to change, but you have to change first.
Exactly.
Right?
It never works, not even with an abusive partner or with rebellious children. We have a lot of moms that want to drop off their 15-year-olds and say, I'll be back in 2 hours, please change them. No, sorry, it doesn't work like that. You've got to come in and
do the work. Do the work.
Right.
How do you know, Kenny, that you're living smart?
Oh, I know it with every second of the day because I maximize my time doing what I feel is important to me. God, family, and my mission in life. I love being a missionary, even if you never leave Houston. You know, you can be a missionary in your own neighborhood.
In your own home.
And within your home. Yes, everything's, what is it?
Starts at home.
The first church is your home.
That's right.
So I don't like to waste my time or energy on things that are not going to bring me or my loved ones or another human being happiness. Right. I want, the day I die, I want to be able to say, because Candy lived, one person lived better.
And we know that's happening. Tell me about children, because what we want to do and what you do on a daily basis is stop the cycle of violence. How do you help the kids? Because I know you also coach children and teenagers.
Well, first of all, it's very difficult with the children because they have this battle that they love their abusive parents. You know, love doesn't know that it's not supposed to be abused. And so the children are very confused. They feel guilty because they're angry at their parents, because they feel hurt and pain, but at the same time they love their parents. So the first thing we have to do is teach the child it's okay to be angry at mama because they hit her, but it's not okay for you to hit her. You want to stop the hitting. So we kind of separate that, and we give the children, they learn to give themselves permission to be angry, but not act out on their anger. Right. So that's the very first thing. And then from there we move on to, well, what are you going to do the next time this happens? How are you going to not let this affect you so much? Then from there we move on to, what are you going to do different for yourself? So it's a process also with the child. The hardest part is helping the child to learn, yes, I can be angry at daddy because he hit mommy. That doesn't mean I don't love him. See, a little child doesn't understand that mixed emotions there.
If you're watching the show and you're getting battered and you're afraid, I mean, isn't that the biggest emotion you feel when you're getting battered? You are just terrorized.
Yes, you're traumatized.
What's the first thing that you want these women to do?
Not be alone. The more you are alone, the less you tell someone, the more power you are giving the abuser. Get information, find resources, find a support group, talk to someone at church, talk to a neighbor, someone that can help you. Because the mistake that all victims make is, I'm the only one. I'm the stupid one. I'm the only one. Once they realize there's hundreds of other people out there going through the same thing, they understand, well, I'm not as stupid, because not everybody can be stupid. And so being alone is not being alone is the very first thing. Find a support system without his knowing, because you could endanger your life. Find someone you can talk to, someone that could maybe pick you up, take you to a support group, and take you back before he finds out. But do not be alone. Do not be ashamed. Do not be embarrassed, because you're not the only one, even though he might say you are.
Very common. Thank you so much, Candy Perez
Thank you
Johnson,
for having me
being
here.
with us. Thank you. We appreciate the work that you do. And for more information on La Rosa Family Services, you can reach them at 713-699-3974. That's 713-699-3974. 3974, or check their website at larosafamilyservices.org. For more information on prevention, you can call toll-free at 1-888-END-ABUSE. That's 1-888-END-ABUSE. Whatever you do, if you need help, don't wait. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. And please remember to visit our website, houstonpbs.org/livingsmart, for a complete resource list, and feel free to share your own success stories in dealing with abuse, so we share them with others in the community. You can call us with your comments at 713-743-8513 or email livingsmart@houstonpbs.org. And that's our show for today. Remember to live smart and tune in next week to learn how to get a good night's sleep from a pioneer in the field, Dr. Todd Swick. I'm Patricia Gras. Have a fabulous week.